Okay, Heat 4 is where it really starts to heat up for me. That was super lame. That's okay though. I'm gonna leave that in. But really, we have the scene with Eris, the scene with Akuma. We have the heartfelt scene with Jamal. We have a little insight into Osvaldo, and then we get that little reveal with Lucia. This is such a good heat, and this is why I love this series. So everything beforehand was pretty much just book setup, and to get us as frustrated as Carl is with the way the world is working right now. But it did take me a while. It took me a while, but I was so excited reading through this, and I cannot wait to learn what all these little tidbits mean. Okay, so first when Carl is thinking about his Emberus Problem, which, by the way, I don't understand his thought process about how he thinks that he has to kill him. Like, I feel like Emberus is just like, yeah, he's a little kooky, but he's really just like this big softie. Like, he was crying when he was talking to Samantha, and he was like so excited when he was chasing after Orthus. I just don't see him as the type of god who would actually go through with killing Carl. I also kind of feel that if Helic and Emberus actually got together so that way they could talk things out, like, I think that would resolve the issue. Helic seemed like a pretty, like, chill god, and I just feel like Emberus would end up listening to him. I think Emberus has very high emotions, leaning towards murder and destruction, but I also think that, like, in the end, he'd actually, like, listen. And then even setting aside, like, if Emberus would actually end up murdering Carl or anything, if he can't kill Helic, or if he does kill Helic, doesn't Carl have that ring with the loan from Emberus's temple? And, like, isn't there a debuff that would happen if he took off the ring or got rid of the ring, or if he left the religion? I forget exactly what that wording was, but it sounds important. It sounds like killing Emberus or leaving his religion. Like, I don't think that that's gonna go very well for Carl. So I hope he figures something else out. While Carl is thinking about all this, he thinks about Eris, and she just appears. She is summoned by error. She's also level 251, meaning she went up a whole level. So how is she getting that experience? Is it only from maybe, like, everything that escaped the nothing? Or is it from when she's jumping through the tunnel systems, as we saw at the epilogue of the last book? Is she getting experience for killing people out in the real world? And how much, like, to go from level 250 to 251, that's to be an insane amount of experience to go up one level like that high. And, like, what about her spells and everything that she could use? It just, it could mean so much. And, like, if the other gods are doing this too. And it's really cute. She has that robot Uzi Jesus as a pet. That's I find it really cute. And while she's talking to him, she makes a mention about judging people by the amount of rot in their souls, and you could see it in the swirls. And, like, her whole aesthetic, she has swirls. So I think that that's also pretty cool that ties in. And I wonder, like, if this rot, these swirls, is what helps her in her predictions. I just love all these little tidbits of information that we're getting with Eris here. We're learning that she needs Florin to survive to unravel the mystery with Lucia. What does Eris have to do with that? We also get information about Brittany and the pickaxe from Yasalt and how it might end up killing everybody. And she mentions that Carl has to make nice with Akuma, that war mage, and it has something to do about the Pineapple Cabaret. And she wants Carl's help in killing Emberus, Helic, and Tyrannus, who's in love with a pig. And that's kind of going along with, like, what Carl was thinking. I still think that there's a different way. Like, just get them all together and let them all talk and figure things out, and, like, let all those secrets bubble to the surface. Like, whatever Samantha told Emberus, like, we still have to hear what that is. I want that to happen. I don't want them to die. But can't always get what you want. So we'll see what Eris's plan and Carl's plan all ends up being, I guess. But one of the things that Eris needs to do with Carl is flip a coin, because you need to break things down before you can build them up. And she also mentions that, like, Carl is an agent of chaos and that he's unpredictable, which is a joy for her because she knows everything. And I think it's really interesting that she doesn't know everything about Carl. And, like, what does that mean if she can predict and she knows, like, everything, but she can't with Carl? But anyway, the sides of the coin, it's a 5-sided coin, and she names 4 sides. It's Donut, rest in peace. So Donut dies. No. 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 Carl is defeated, and there's a picture of him without his feet. So is it just a play on words? And he's like defeated, he loses in something? Or does he really get his feet chopped off? There's a side where most of his friends are dead. And then the fourth side is, I become what they accuse me of being. Of all four sides, that feels like the one that is the most likely to come true, whether that coin is involved or not. It feels like Carl has kind of been, I don't know, towing this line, or like having this balancing act between remaining human, saving all of these people, and making really hard sacrifices. But also that his friends keep holding him back. So what happens when more of his friends make deals? What happens when more of his friends die? So even without the coin's involvement, I feel like that would be the most likely outcome of all of these. But Carl being Carl, he catches the coin in midair, which is the fifth side. So that means none of them can happen. All of them can happen. One or two or some of them can happen. So it's all up in the air. It's all chaos. It's all random, which is pretty much Carl's brand and Eris's brand. So I think it worked out exactly how it was supposed to. And when Carl ended up catching this coin, he got pretty much branded with a swirl tattoo on his, I think it was his right hand, which I think is the same as Donut's right paw with the claws. So that's interesting. And then the AI makes a comment, like he's just like, I don't know what this is. The bitch is coloring outside the lines. I love it. I love it. And so we're seeing that the AI really does have like no control, like, you know, summoned by error, and now like I don't even know what this is on your hand. I can't describe it. Like So after that, Carl and the gang go and see Akuma in his chicken and waffles and upgrades store restaurant thing, where Pony orders like 20 different sodas. I know. I love it. I just, he's so cute with his sodas. But anyway, we see a terrifying side of Elle. She freezes his crotch and like shatters one of his balls. Like, she is a badass. I love it. And then Carl ends up asking him a bunch of questions while he's in pain and his health is draining. So that's just like, okay guys, okay. And here we learn one of the cookbook authors, Harriet, is working with another ex-crawler, Minerva, which I think was mentioned by Porthos, are trapped somewhere called a Pineapple Cabaret, a pocket dimension that they created to save mobs, to have mobs and NPCs live like outside of the horrors of the dungeon. And while learning about that, we also like learn kind of how parts of the dungeon are made, and Akuma pretty much thinks that like everything needs to be burned to the ground and start it from scratch if they ever want the dungeon to continue. You know, which we don't. But then that would mean, according to him, that everybody inside is just going to die, that nobody's going to be allowed out. None of the indentured, none of the crawlers are going to be let out. So they need to use the Pineapple Cabaret to try to escape to the surface of Earth to get out. I don't know how much of that is true, or just Akuma like catastrophizing to try to get the crawlers to do what he wants. And the reason why Akuma needs the crawlers to help him is because there's shadow mimics and the Ogre Imperium and remnants of things that they don't want to wake that Agatha will wake if she has a chance. Because that's not ominous or anything at all. And these things are running loose in the Pineapple Cabaret right now, and they need the crawlers to come help them. Because apparently this group of crawlers is the most powerful that the dungeon has ever created, despite only being on floor 10, which is insane. Because, right, and this reminds me, we still have not heard about that crawler who made it to the 13th floor. There was only one. It was a human. And that's it. That's all we know. We have no idea about the crawl. Like, that was just like a little tidbit in the beginning, and I thought we'd find out more about it, and we never did. But apparently all these crawlers are more powerful than that person, so. But anyway, now Carl and crew have a bunch of new information to work with. Now they're going to try to get everybody into the Pineapple Cabaret and get Harriet, and Minerva, you know, working together to try to get everybody up to the surface of Earth. Which once they're up there, like what? The the syndicate and everybody is all up there. The AI still has control of that area. I'm still not exactly clear what getting to Earth's surface will accomplish, except just like not being in the dungeon when it's destroyed. I'm not really clear on that part yet. And now, as a consequence of the Wild Hunt and the Jugglers both dying last round, Carl and Donut are now facing off against Osvaldo and his crew, Team Flamingo. And Donut makes a heartbreaking comment about how it's just easier if they stay not liking each other. Because again, they're in this mindset where probably only one team can win, and they're gonna have to kill him. Unless two teams can win. But Jasha and Radislav! Especially with this Pineapple Cabaret where the NPCs can go and live and escape. Like, I hope that they send Jasha and Radislav down there. But it turns out Osvaldo didn't just have Epito's Memorial Crystal, he also had Ysolt's. And both of them, something was wrong with them, so now he has a quest where he has to figure out what is wrong with them. But Osvaldo also makes the comment that he was friends with Paz and Anton and Sister Inez. And that everyone who comes in contact with Carl dies, and now it's their turn. Which again, I become what they accuse me of being. Then we get a little bit of a comedic break with Dr. Metcalf. Again, the GPS, super snarky, love her, complaining about not being upgraded, and makes this biting comment to Carl about how this all comes from your inability to commit. You fear that decisions are the same things as shackles. Ooh, that is so good. That is so good because, yeah, personally, I am so indecisive. It takes me forever to make a decision, and sometimes the time runs out to make the decision, and it's just whatever is left. Which is a different form of a shackle, you know? And then for the actual race... I'll just say, like, to sum it up, the whole thing sounds very socially conscious, but outrageously racist at the same time. That quote from Carl definitely fits that racetrack. It also fits this entire series. You know, it's something that you think about while you're reading it. It's very socially conscious, it's very forward-looking, and it also uses a lot of stereotypes. And sometimes it's hard to tell the line between... You know, is this here to point it out and make you think about it and make you realize it? Or is it just there as like a throwaway comment and it's just buried in there? Just like how right after Carl like says all this stuff and thinks that, he says something like, yeah, if the AI thinks that redheads are the spiciest, you haven't met a Latina. You know, like immediately that comment, like, yeah, Carl. But yes, the whole race is like that, and the whole book series is like that, which is part of why I love it. Yes, give me, I love. And then we have a little heartbreaking and heartwarming moment with Jamal. So in this floor, Jamal got hands for his spider legs and also sticky feet so he can climb up walls. And when Carl and Donut come back at the halfway point of this race, he's stuck on the ceiling. He went up there because Jamal used to go up high to see everything when he was real. He says that he knows that he's not Jamal anymore, that Jamal was brave and it wasn't him. He says, I know that, and I want to be brave, and I want to be Jamal, and now I'm up here and I'm so afraid what I'm going to lose. And that's the point where Jamal switches from, you know, calling himself Jamal to using I statements. And then for the heartwarming part, Donut just lets him know that if we worry about things that we can't control, we start to ruin the things that we can. And that he shouldn't be scared to tell them when he's in trouble because they're family and they'll help him. I just want to give him a big hug. Him and Pony. So many times I want to hug Pony in this book, but like right now, really want to hug Jamal. Big shark with spider legs. And during this conversation, their hired mercenaries, Finley, goes to take his two friends after hearing this speech to go get help. And the One Fine Pig team runs them over twice, like completely killing them. And not only it was this like such a heartwarming moment, and then boom, they're all gone, but also now Carl and Donut don't have anybody to drive their car for the second half of the race. And Carl just goes ballistic. He goes on a rampage. He almost uses his wraith skill to go in and murder them all. And again, I become what they accuse me of being. But Imani and Donut are there to hold him back, and he ends up just planting disintegration traps that just focus on the two Tigrans and not the pig who might end up, if dying, summoning Tyrannus and, murdering everybody. And it turns out that once they are disintegrated, the team is eliminated, but nothing happened to the pig. So the pig wasn't even a part of the racing team and didn't need to die for their team to be disqualified. And Carl and Donut for the second half of the race, I think it's such a smart idea that they had to get around not being able to have a different driver, is that they used the second chance spell, and then they used the clockwork triplicate spell in order to keep them going, and that's how they ended up driving the rest of the race. And then Carl makes a comment to Florin about how, he has to win their heat because he has to get the key into the one pig garage to get the pig, that he needs to get the pig. So far we have Carl needing to combine Corcunda and completing that quest, and now he also needs the pig. So is he going to just invite them all together to talk, or maybe battle it out? Like, he gets two stand-ins in the arena, maybe it's Emberus and Helic, and then he's going to use the pig to get Tyrannus there, and then just summon Eris just by thinking about her, and then have them all, like, battle it out or talk it out, and then we get all these secrets revealed, because that would be really cool. Especially if it ends up, like, ruining the whole, like crawlers having to fight everything in the arena. If just those gods kind of battle it out and destroy everything, and all the crawlers just kind of get to, like, watch. And then at the end of all of this, we get this little confrontation with Lucia. And Lucia talks about how the god is there, Chalchi Utlikyu. She says that she doesn't need Cece or Gus like the Primal and the Residual did. So when Lucia said, "Oh no, you killed the wrong one," she wanted Gus to be killed because Gus had Alejandro inside of him, which was, I think, the Residual, right? So then was the Primal inside Cece and helping Lucia and, like, helping the kids? She says that the goddess says that it might be better for the children to just die, and that they are vessels in the river like Carl is. Does that mean all crawlers, or like Carl specifically because of all of that? The stuff with the abyss and the tree and, She says that now that the veins are open, that more are coming. And so the veins being open, is that the tunnel? And is it the fact that the tunnels plus the AI containment being inside the tunnels? So are these more that are coming? Is that the other AIs from past games that they, like, locked away? Because it says all the trapped are coming, and all seek the prize on the 12th floor, the Ascendancy games, which Eris was just talking about. She wants to win the Ascendancy game because then she could do whatever she wants, like rebuild Earth. And so these others that are coming also want to win the Ascendancy game. And Lucia makes a comment about how it's not a game like they told me, but it's also not a game like they told you. And I think that that's really interesting, because we did see in one of the past books that Lucia was convinced that it was a video game. Like, none of this is real, it's just a game. She didn't think that she was actually killing people. At least that was the impression that I got at that time. And then what Carl understood was that this is, right, Dungeon Crawler World is a game. It's a reality TV show that they're all trapped in, trying to survive for their life. So it's real for them with real consequences. People in the galaxy don't exactly see them as real people. They see them as players and characters. But it's still that Carl has to play the game in order to try to survive. But then saying that it's not a game, like he was told either, at least not anymore, right, opens up that it's another type of game. And so again, going back to my unhinged theory, right, ritual sacrifice, like real, like there's some analogy, something analogous. There's something in the real world that is mirroring the dungeon. And if somebody wins this Ascendancy game, something in the world wins this ascendancy game. What does that mean, and what do they get to be in control of outside of the dungeon? Those were like two separate thoughts, but pretend they make sense. And they're saying that in the ascendancy, it's not just her kind, so not just gods and goddesses. The real, the imagined, and the enslaved. Which again, right, they are trapping the AIs after the dungeon games are over, and I think Zev was the one who said that was what happened, and they just kind of live in their own containment. That's not, and for me that sounds horrifying, right? I don't know, but I don't know the amount of sentience these AIs end up having. Like, they have all of this technology and they're super advanced. I would assume that their AIs are, very advanced and probably pretty sentient. And then, right, there's that comment with Agatha in one of the epilogues, I think. It was during, I think, the 8th book when everything was coming out and it was kind of confusing. I still can't keep track of it, but I think they said something about waking up the baby AI and teaching it what it is. And I think what I gathered from that before, and what I'm thinking now as we keep learning things, is that these are primals, baby primals, where they're peeling us from. And, all the seeds on the planet, like the planets are seeded. Are humans actually primals? I don't know. But yeah, so is this like some big ritual sacrifice? Is there something in the world with real world consequences? Is there some kind of like real analog to the dungeon? Like, all these myths that they talk about, what was the actual origin? And we also get like the scavenger's daughter says that like it blinks because it doesn't know what it sees. And then once the presence is gone, it shudders, it's scared. So I don't know if that's just because the god is inside the kid. The god is, talking from somewhere else, so it doesn't technically count as like a presence for Carl to get a benefit from it. Or if it's something else entirely. Or if it's because, okay, or I just thought it was scavenger's daughter, so it's a kid, and this god wants to kill all the kids. So when a different child takes over for Lucia, she mentions that the angel lady, the goddess, mentions that others are coming to take their bodies. So are all of the consciousnesses of these kids stuck inside Lucia, so that way their bodies are open for all these entities coming in? And the kids keep talking about the cold, and then we just heard from Akuma about the cold storage. And you're not supposed to realize that you're in storage, but these kids obviously do. And we hear about Jasha and Radislav saying the cold. We heard about Sharp Elbows talking about the cold. It sounds like you are conscious of it, and that's horrible. But anyway, so this heat was just so good. It was just so good, and it makes me really excited for the rest of the book, which I wasn't feeling that way up until this point. So a good 250, 300 pages for me to really start to get into this book. That's a lot. That's a lot, but I am happy that there's all these more secrets, more reveals, more mysteries. That is what I love about the series. All right, I'm going to read some more, and I'll check in with you guys later. Okay, so Heat 5 was a race in, I guess, a doll factory that was a front for toddler drugs. That was basically that race. And with that out of the way, let's get to the points that are actually important. Like the quest to reunite Corcunda and Dong, and getting Li Na down to the Pineapple Cabaret. And I think one of the more important parts is just seeing how much Pony has grown in such a short period of time. So the biggest thing that we have here, of course, is the quest with Corcunda. Reuniting Corky and Porky, the two half-Mantors. And everything, like all of those descriptions of the Mantors and their gimp suits and the zippers. No thank you. No thank you. They get Gregory, a Fleshmancer, to come help them, reunite the two halves of this Mantar. And side note is that the Fleshmancer wants to meet Samantha because she does not sound like a withering spirit. And I'm really excited to see what he has to say about her and if she gets a body. Carl calls this quest the key to everything. And I think it's because he gets to invite those two replacements for the arena, and he can pick any of them, and he really wants to mess up the dungeon. But because he thinks this is so important, he's also not telling Donut the reason why, or really anybody the reason why. He just knows it's super important and is trying to get people to help him with it, but he's not giving reasons. He's saying it's because he doesn't want them to take away the prize. And I can understand that. The dungeon's being a big dick right now. And Carl says that he doesn't take the trust that Donut has in him for granted. And I just think that that's a sweet moment between them. So to get this quest rolling, they have to get into this secret singing guild to find Porky. And to do that, they have to win at karaoke. Or get a top score in karaoke. I don't know how that works. But they do take on me, and I think that this scene in the book it's just gold. It's just perfect. I loved everything about that scene. I read it through it twice, and I played the song on the background. It was so good. I love how they were all prepped. They had the compounded potions. They were ready to get Donut to be the top one with all of her notes and her charisma and everything to get into it. And Dwight the Unicorn just stabs the karaoke DJ right as they're starting, which means they can't fail. And it's and one of the best parts is when Carl hits that really high note in the song and the karaoke machine or whatever it is, the meter above his head starts flashing and flaming, and it says that half the people in the room stop fighting. And Florin stops mid-punch and just looks at Carl wow. It was so good. It was so good. I think that was my favorite scene up to this point, which is saying something because I really liked the scene with Eris. I really like scenes where there's a lot of secrets coming out or mysteries kind of being revealed. So the fact that this was one of my favorite scenes, I don't know, it was so good. But as a result of this fight, Dong ends up losing the sock and he's dying being separated from this sentient weapon. He got a curse or something. So now he's dying and he needs to be reunited with Corcunda. But one of the big roadblocks with this quest is that Carl wants to keep Dong separated from these parts until after they're reunited because he's afraid that with Dong's emotions that he'll be too close and risk messing this up. However, Biggs calls Carl out and it's delicious. I love it. Biggs says that the code of conduct is unity, support, family, and kneecapping bitches. And Carl isn't being very good at any of those things, particularly supporting his family, supporting Dong, while he's trying to see the love of his life. That is also a really good scene. This is a very emotional section of the book, especially from Carl's end. Carl's just you know what, you're right. I'm a jerk. I am doing my best and it's not good enough. Biggs then forgives him and leaves, but then he has to apologize to Dong, which he does, and Dong understands. It's just such a good section. Carl tells Biggs that, before he said that we have to help each other. Otherwise, what's the point? When we stop doing that, we stop being, and he said human originally, but he needed a new word because now he is starting to connect himself with everybody else. Not just humans, not just earthlings, but crawlers, and then everybody around him who's now his family, which includes some of the NPCs. And Big says real G's. So then when Carl apologizes to Dong, he says that he'll try to make sure that he could say goodbye to his friend. Carl takes some time to explain to Dong about why he was keeping them separated, and I think he just did that very perfectly. He said that sometimes things are happening too quickly and trying to survive this, he cannot spare the feelings of friends, but he's also coming to realize that survival has more than one meaning. And Dong said that one of the reasons why he fell in love with Corcunda was that he said that there aren't any sad endings if it's by the side of the people who make you happy. And they're very cute sentiments, and I really like them, and I do think that they have a true meaning. But I hope this isn't foreshadowing that the book's gonna end with all of them just side by side blowing up themselves and everything in the system, and just the universe just ends and they all die together. That is not what I want for this series. But with those two lines very close together, Carl thinks about how close he's becoming to being Li Na, to being Lucia Mystery. He says that right now he's no longer standing on the edge, that he's stepped off the edge and is clinging on by his fingertips. I think we're seeing that at every step of the way, which again is why I think I become what they accuse me of being. I just feel like he's already taking those steps there and he's recognizing it too. And then finally, when they get the two pieces together during the race, it summons Grull. the god that Maestro is driving. And I love that it's so short-lived for the Maestro being there. Donut just casts Laundry Day, and he's ejected, and he's gone. He can't die on this floor, but it's still just kind of like, yeah, you're still a bumbling idiot. And then in contrast, we get the patient and steady and inevitable Grull. So Corcunda is kind of effed. He's just effed. And so he and Dong go out in a blaze of glory. Dong with his original lance, which Donut magnetizes with a spell from the book that she ate the page from. And he just charges right into the god right before dying. It doesn't explain how he died. Did he die from all the screws and everything from the factory going into him? Did he die on contact with the god? I don't know. But the god did say that it was a good death. And it was sweet. It was bittersweet. I feel like the successes on this floor are really hollow in comparison to the other floors. Even last floor, it was a big war. So many people died. They died by the hundreds in a battle. But it felt like it meant something. And this floor just doesn't feel that way. They finally had the success of putting the Corky and Porky together to be Corcunda and getting Dong and him reunited. And then a god and they're dead. Like, it just felt very hollow. But Carl got his 2 entries into the arena. And before all of that happened, they sent Lena to the Pineapple Cabaret to see if it would work. And also to get her away from all of the other crawlers, because she cast her dreads and a bunch of other crawlers killed each other. Zhang is so upset. He thinks he's failing Li Jun. He thinks that Na is no longer herself. And we find out that Zhang, pictured himself marrying her back in the real world. And now she just doesn't resemble herself anymore. Carl thinks that, she was always a little bit like this, but I guess with the race change or maybe just, the trauma of the dungeon, it's becoming more and more clear. But we also find out right before she goes into the cleaner bot that she felt the same way about Zhang. But yeah, the whole cleaner bot kind of loophole thing where Hero has a standing order to purchase all of the cleaner bots. And Mistress Tiatha said that it's happened before. So how long has this been going on for? And how many people have they been able to gather into the Pineapple Cabaret even before this? And the fact that they created a plant signal to see if she was still alive, that's pretty cool, but I wonder if it could be tampered with? And I guess we're not going to find out for another couple of floors. Oh, and Carl, continuing his, sweet, apologies and thanking people, thanks the cleaner bot for, being a hero and always cleaning up after them, and eventually it's gonna fill the cleaner bot with a bunch of people and send them down to the cabaret. I just thought that was a good touch. He's really getting in touch with his emotions, although I feel like that's right, it's a sign that it's the end, right? It's the sign that it's coming to the end, and these are his last times that he gets to say kind of these things. Or he's just noticing at this point that he is far gone and he doesn't want to be broken and he doesn't want to leave that part of him behind. And so he's making a conscious effort to bring that emotional side of him to the forefront and to be nice and kind in the face of all of this trauma. And finally, we have so much goodness with Pony in this section. When the fight is going down in the bar, he's raiding the bar, whether it's for more soda or maybe, potion ingredients. But I don't know, it's kind of cute to me. He also really wanted to sing In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And he bought a karaoke machine to practice it. But we don't get to see him perform. I don't know if he did. I think the DJ was killed before he could. But when he's in the guild, he talks to Amani and kind of casually puts in there, maybe I can connect my space to the guild. And Amani's kind of grumpy and it's just the last time I offered, you said no. But I think that it just showed how much he changed and how brave he's being in this moment. While he's doing it kind of passively, it still takes a lot of courage to do something like that, especially once it starts to mean something to you. And at this point, right, we know he's lonely. We know he wants to learn how to interact with people, and he just doesn't know how. And that Donut had said that, they'll talk every day and that, she'll help him. And I think she has, and I think it's coming out. He is helping Carl during the race, trying to get Bianca to grab Corky. And it didn't end up working out, but he tried. And also during the race, he sent a message to everybody telling them how like they could help survive and delay these, neighborhood bosses that are basically unkillable. And I don't think he would have done that a couple of books ago. And I don't know, I just think he's really growing and you could really see it. And I'm just so proud of him. And he's such a good boy. I want to give him a hug. I hope that he does join the guild and that he just keeps growing and he lets people, get to know him in a way that works for both him and others. So yeah, I think that this was a really full section, and while I really didn't care about the race part, all the other parts together really made it an interesting section for the book. And I hope that the other sections, because we've got two more races left, so we'll see if it's Carl and Dona and, Team Flamenco, or do they pick Jasha and Radislav, or is it really only one winner? We're getting close to that. So I'm going to go see if this kind of keeps up and if the rest of the sections are really interesting and, despite the racing bits, and see what this 11th floor is all about.